Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this council meeting of February the 22nd, the public portion. Call this meeting to order, and I'll call for a moment of silence, please. Thank you. Scugog is situated on treaty land that is steeped in rich Indigenous history. Today, we acknowledge that we are gathering on the traditional territories of the Mississaugas of Scugog Island First Nation. We recognize and deeply appreciate the historic Indigenous connection to this land and recognize the contributions First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples have made, both in shaping and strengthening this community in particular, our province and country as a whole. We're grateful for the opportunity to meet here, and we thank all of the generations of people who have taken care of this land for thousands of years. I will now call on the clerk to call the roll call, please, and give the processes for tonight's meeting. Madam Clerk?
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor, and for your information, Sandra Frey will be recording the minutes in eScribe this evening and conducting the votes. Should we have any technical issues during the meeting, please be patient as we try to resolve them. If we are unable to, then we will carry on with the meeting, provided that the live stream is still operating and all members of council, staff, and the public are still able to fully participate. I will now conduct a roll call to ascertain which members of council are present. Mayor Drew is present. Councillor Watton, are you present?
I'm present, thank you.
Councillor McDougall.
Present, thank you.
Councillor Guido.
I'm present, thank you.
Councillor Ross.
Present, thank you.
Councillor Kiesebrink.
Present.
Councillor Brown.
Present.
Thank you. Madam Mayor, I can confirm that we have a quorum for this meeting. I will now list, oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
I will now list the staff who are present in alphabetical order. Adam Dubecki, Amy Coughlin, Carol Coleman, Ken Nix, our CAO, Kevin Arsenault, Kevin Heritage, Laura Barta, Lori Bowers, Mark Burney, Rob Frasca, Sandra Frey, and Terry Barton. We also have a few delegates appearing later this evening who will be introduced shortly. Are there any members of staff present who I did not mention? Thank you. As in previous electronic meetings, I will now review the rules for the meeting. Please mute your microphone while not talking. This will avoid any background noise that may occur where you are and will avoid any echo of the audio. Please use headphones, as this will also improve the audio quality. If you would like to speak, please use the hand raise function in the meeting. The mayor will then call upon you when it's your turn. For members of council, if you leave your computer, please let the mayor know so that quorum can continue to be met. When moving or seconding a motion, please use the hand raise function in the meeting and the mayor will announce who the mover and seconder are. This meeting is being recorded and live streamed to the township's YouTube channel. We will be using an electronic voting process during tonight's meeting. At the appropriate times, Sandra will announce that the voting is open and council members will be asked to make a selection. Once everyone has voted, Sandra will announce that the vote is closed. If for any reason a council member is unable to vote, please announce your vote verbally and say in favor or against. If the electronic voting system stops working for any reason, we will revert back to the mayor asking each council member for their vote. Thank you, Madam Mayor. That concludes my opening statement.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest and the nature thereof for tonight's meeting? Seeing none. Prior to public session, we had a meeting in camera in a continuing interest of transparency and open government. I'm reporting in public session any outcomes from today's closed session meeting. As a result of our closed session today, I wish to report the following. Council considered a report with respect to Port Perry Town Hall 1873 ICIP grant report and respect. Sorry, I'm trying to read my writing here. To the town, to the, oh, sorry. questions were asked and staff and of staff, and the recommendations in the report were approved. Thank you. Any announcements from council and council first of all? And I have one to start us off, and I'll look for some hands. As Oak Ridges Hospice transitions from the building phase to the operational phase, we offer our congratulations to Dr. Steve Russell, who has been appointed to the position of Medical Director, and to Steve Gray, who takes on the position of Chair of the Board. And another announcement under the heading of Best Laid Plans. With Scugog and Durham moving into red, our staff arranged to have the snowbanks cleared in downtown Port Perry last week. However, the Tuesday storm and other circumstances got in the way, but our work staff started in the wee hours of Saturday morning and did their magic before store openings. A great big thank you to Director Coleman, Manager Rob Frasca, and our amazing work staff. Well done. The weather was beautiful on the weekend, and there was a lot of activity in downtown Port Perry, the lakefront, and throughout Scugog. It seems people are not heeding the provincial directives to stay home as much as possible and not to visit other regions. I'm sure the business people were happy about the increased business after the lockdown, and I applaud them for going above and beyond to keep everyone safe. However, I implore everyone to maintain the safety precautions that are still in place, including wearing a mask indoors and even outdoors, keeping a distance from others of at least 6 feet, and frequently washing or sanitizing your hands. Thank you. And I see that Councillor Guido has an announcement. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I know we have thanked Mr. Mackey in the past, but I really do want to extend our thanks from council and the township to Mr. Mackey, who is plowing and maintaining the skating ovals and the various hockey or skating areas on the lake. If we can find any silver lining in this COVID lockdown, it's been the fact that everyone has reconnected with their families, reconnected outside. I have never seen our downtown lakefront so busy with all age groups out there enjoying fresh air, exercise. It's free. And hopefully, as our businesses are opening, that we're able to then support our local businesses who are downtown and desperately need our support. But again, a huge thank you to Mr. Mackey from the marina, who is doing the plowing on the lake to ensure that we have something safe and healthy to do in our township.
Thank you, Councillor Guido. Well said. It is amazing. I saw the crowds on the lake on the weekend, and people were generally really good about keeping distancing. We didn't see a lot of masks, but people were out there enjoying the fresh air and exercise, and really warm and thank you to Mr. Mackey for doing this. What community spirit. So thank you. Councillor Kiesebrink.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to say thank you to yourself and also to our patrol sergeant, Mark Leona, who responded quickly to requests from constituents regarding just people leaving a lot of garbage around on the ice with their ice huts and so on. So the police very quickly patrolled not just in Uxbridge and Brock trails, but they also patrolled MSF IFN as well as on Lake Scugog, just to talk to people and remind them to please keep their ice huts clean and just checking for permits. They said that overall the public were happy to see the police. They were very gracious for the few tickets they did have to issue. And again, we just appreciate our community working together to have fun and stay safe.
Well, somebody's got their microphone on. Thank you, Councillor Kiesebrink. Yes, the police are out there patrolling on the snowmobile trails and on the lake to keep everyone safe. Not only watching for garbage and permits and snowmobile safety, but also for COVID safety as well. So thank you for bringing that forward. See no other hands from council, but Chief Burney, I understand you have an announcement.
Thank you, Mayor Drew. I have three brief announcements, and I promise to keep them brief. First, I'd like to speak to COVID-19. The Emergency Control Group met today and continues to work towards the next move in the province's public health intermediate measures level, also known as the orange level. And I look forward to that move, as I'm sure all of us do. I'd also like to echo your words, Mayor Drew, and encourage our residents and visitors who are enjoying our community and supporting our local businesses to continue taking all necessary safety precautions, including wearing masks outside, limiting contact, practicing social distancing, washing hard surfaces, and washing your hands frequently. And I would suggest that if anybody needs more information, that they can go to scugog.ca to get more COVID information. Next, I'd like to briefly speak to vaccinations. Ontario's vaccination rollout includes those who provide medical services. And I'm happy to share with you that over the weekend, some of our firefighting team from Scugog received their initial vaccinations. And I hope that the balance of our team wanting to be vaccinated will be scheduled in the coming days. And then finally, an exciting announcement. And weather permitting, staff from both Scugog Fire along with Durham Regional Police will participate in a joint services training exercise tomorrow on the ice of Lake Scugog in the Caesarea area. The exercise is designed to simulate an ice water rescue and will allow our services to measure interoperability, resources within Air One and the Marine Unit, and obviously develop our collective abilities as emergency responders. And that, Mayor Drew, are my announcements. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Chief Burney. Are there any other staff members that have an announcement? Seeing none, we will now move on to item number 9 in our agenda, which is presentations and delegations. Our first delegation will take a little longer than our usual 15 minutes. So with Council's indulgence, I will allow a half hour and I will remind the delegates at that time. And so I would like to welcome Sam Shannon and Darla Campbell from Dillon Consulting Limited to talk to us about the road maintenance modernization review that recently completed. Sam and Darla, please, you have the floor.
Excellent. Well, thank you for the opportunity. My name is Darla Campbell, and I'm the project manager for this project, the Road Maintenance Modernization Review. Next slide. So we have a technical difficulty there. Next slide, please.
I'm sorry, just a moment, please.
I see we have Todd McDonald as well joining us for the delegation. So welcome, Todd and Darla and Sam.
Great, thank you. Hopefully we can get the slides ready. So let me, I guess, speak to them as we imagine the slides are there. We have, there were 4 parts to this very exciting project. So that includes the road maintenance activities review, the road hard surfacing strategy, the public works depot buildings condition assessment, and the fleet management review. The project was funded through the provincial government's municipal modernization program grant. And the road maintenance activities part of the project included winter control activities, which you spoke of in your earlier announcements. The non-winter control activities, the includes peer benchmarking and depot rationalization and analysis. So we looked at that. Let's see if the slides are working. Next slide.
I'm sorry, they're still not working.
All right, so I'll continue speaking. So the road hard surfacing strategy looked at current and recommended gravel road management strategy and looked at conversion candidates to implement the timeline. The Public Works depot building condition assessment included visual facility condition assessment, energy audit, and sand and salt storage requirements. And fleet management included fleet utilization optimization and peer benchmarking. So I'm hoping we can get our slides ready to go because it does make the project a little more interesting. But I'm going to hand over to Todd McDonald to talk about the road maintenance activities review.
Thanks, Darla. And if only I had my finger puppets available to show council the visual representations. But let me speak quickly to the road maintenance review. So we were looking fundamentally at three aspects of road maintenance: winter control, seems apropos for that in February, non-winter road maintenance, and the issue of public works depots, one, two, and where, of course, were the issues. Oh, this is looking promising. If we move through, that is a little further along. I think we probably want to move. I think it's probably somewhere around slide 7 or 8 at this point. Next one. Well, there we go. Fantastic. And so with those three areas of investigation, we wanted to answer some fundamental questions for you. We want to make sure that from an accountability and a risk management point of view, that your winter and non-winter programs were properly designed and operating to mitigate risk. We want to make sure that from a resourcing point of view, that the level of resourcing, both operating and capital, were sustainable from a public safety point of view, safe travel in public. And of course, we wanted to look at the central mandate of improving taxpayer value for money. In essence, we want to make sure you were doing the right things and that you were also doing things right. Next slide, please. So as always with these reviews, a boatload of data. Of course, we have information around your road network. A little bit less than half of the network is gravel. A little bit more than half is surfaced, either paved or surface treated. Most of your roads from the province's point of view, the OREG 239 point of view, in plain language, what that means is based on your traffic counts and your speed limits, most of your roads fall into categories 4 and 5. And that's important because the province uses those categories to set performance targets that you're supposed to meet when it comes to issues like winter control, the cleanup after winter events. So that's really important. We looked at your deployment model. Like most township, small to medium-sized municipalities, you're running for winter control what we call a single shift model. You run it on sort of a Monday to Friday basis. From a technology point of view, we've looked at your GIS and your salt management technology, the GIS equipment that's on your plow units, the salt spreaders that are on your plow units, and the question of scales at the depots, which aren't in place right now. And so we'll talk a bit about the outdated sort of technology infrastructure that's a problem, but it's a resolvable problem. And then finally, we'll talk about performance measures and data tracking, how you can transition from a level of effort model, which is, here's how much money we've got, hope we can do well, to a results-based model, which says, here are the targets we're committed to achieving, and here are the results that we can put in place. Okay, next slide. So keep that in mind when we run through the recommendations. And we've triaged the recommendations into 3 categories: do now, do soon, and do later. Do now is kind of in the next year. Do soon is in a 2-year framework, and do later is after that. As I had mentioned, we're on, Scugog runs on a single deployment model when it comes to winter control. And that model runs Monday to Friday. And last time I checked, the winter is kind of merciless. It also snows on Saturdays and Sundays. So when we looked at your resources that you can deploy for the budget you have, we've come to the conclusion that we needed to shore up some of the soft spots in the schedule of that single shift model. And we've done so by recommending that you reinvest your time and a half overtime hours into straight time hours at straight time rates. And when you do so, you can generate over 2,000 hours of additional winter control resource. You could redirect that into 2 paid overtime positions for the length of the winter contract. We could schedule those resources for weekday evening shifts and weekend shifts, and that would fill some of the soft spots in your model, and it would hedge some of the risk in a tough winter of exhausted and heavily worked staff coming to the point that they're just not able or willing to work discretionary overtime. Right now, you are dependent on staff being willing to volunteer their time to work overtime on evenings and weekends. And that's, from a risk management point of view, that's problematic. And these 2 recommendations would give you some, the beginnings of a shift, if I can put it that way, when you have a severe winter event on a weekend or an evening, and reduce the probability of you having problems of exhausted staff not being available. Next slide, please. Now, the next stage, once we get the resources straight, is to look at the questions of technology and salt management. And problematically, because you don't have scales, and because the spreader technology on the units is not the best, and it's not able to be calibrated accurately, we actually don't know across a specific winter event response, or indeed across the routes that you have in place, how much salt and sand is actually being spread during winter events. We only know how much you buy at the beginning of the season and how much of it gets used. So we don't really understand our spread rate across winter events. We need to get a better handle on that. We're recommending loader scales so that we can understand at least how much salt is being used during events. And we're recommending upgraded spreader technology that town staff can depend on so that they can calibrate the spread rate for different routes. Routes that have tricky public safety issues can get more salt, and we can contribute to public safety. We may well have routes right now that are receiving more material than they want, and there's a financial efficiency associated in more efficiently managing that salt. As well, because our AVL technology on the vehicles is outdated and it's generations old, there's a great deal of difficulty in understanding exactly how much work is being done on a specific winter event response. We're not able to accurately track the past kilometers of work that are being done over the system. And so we're recommending upgrades in the AVL technology to more commercially viable products that are available now. And we are recommending as well that the town continue with its expansion of using the Ontario Good Roads Association winter event tracking app, so that we're actually able to count how many events we're responding to, how long those events lasted, most importantly, when the storm event is over, so that we can then measure the amount of time it takes for us to clean the system up after the end of a storm. And then finally, we are recommending the use of upgraded MTO Durham Road Weather Information System data. When you take these together, this is the technology modernization of your winter control service, and we are confident that with just a 10% decrease in material usage, many of these recommendations will be self-financing. Next slide. Once we've got the technology in place and once we've got the staffing in place, we can start to measure performance more rigorously with key performance indicators. And you'll see on this slide, I'm not going to talk about them, but we've put forward a best practice industry standard set of indicators that you can start to use to set targets and use those to inform the budget process. We could use those indicators to also look at the end of the season how we did in the winter control service. You know, we had 10 system-wide events and we met our cleanup target times 9 times out of 10. That kind of informed evidence-based decision-making becomes possible once we put the technology in place, and once we pick the indicators. Next slide. Once we've got those indicators and we can set targets, we can do the big swing. We can swing from a level of effort, cross our fingers, hope we get lots done budgeting approach, to one that starts with performance targets in place and moves backwards to say, these are the resources we need to put in place to hit the targets. When we're hitting those targets, we'll be managing We'll be managing risk. We'll be managing legal risk, for instance, associated with hitting performance targets. And in the event there's a traffic accident, a serious one, and there's legal repercussions, we'll have data and performance targets to demonstrate that the town was meeting its service levels. We'll also be able to move to this sort of budget contract model, a contract model where in exchange for X amount of money, staff are able to contract with council and with the public a level of public performance and a set of service standards that can be consistently met. And all of this together becomes a results-based management system based on improved technology, better measurement of results, and then target setting. Thanks. Next. So that was winter. Now, another important piece of work that Scugog asked our team to look into was the question of moving forward as we deal with asset management legislation and the need to reinvest in depots. How many depots should we have? Should we go to one? Should we stick with two? With Transnomis, a specialized transportation modeling company, we were able to look at a whole series of scenarios, winter storm scenarios, and what would happen if we only had one depot, what would happen if we deployed from one place, and a whole series of these modeled scenarios that we looked at, and you can see what they are on the screen. And we subjected them to a 12-hour winter event, the what-if test of a 12-hour winter event. Next slide. What we found was when we did this work is that when we looked at the productivity impacts, we found that the scenarios of only having a single start at Port Perry without a Blackstock location resulted in fairly significant problems with the deployment, increases in non-productive distance as plows had to move from the far side of the municipality back to the Port Perry depot location, more blade uptime, less productive time. As we looked across a whole series of these scenarios, it became quite clear that the status quo scenario is pretty good from a performance point of view, having the two full functional depots. But we understand from an asset management point of view, you might not want to spend the dollars, the finite dollars associated with a complete upgrade of both of them. And what we found was scenario 4, with your single start depot at Port Perry, with a refueling station at Blackstock, represented the next viable alternative from the modeled scenarios. And we recognize that there needs to be some additional work on the size of the depot site and the capacity for expansion around the Blackstock location. But again, the single start from Port Perry plus the Blackstock refueling and restocking scenario was the other viable option going forward. The other options all had unacceptable performance impacts. Next slide. So when we move out of winter world and we go to non-winter world, of course, we recognize that we have a whole series of activity-based spending, planned maintenance activities. And again, we want to move forward and have good performance measurement tracking. We took a hard look at workload trends, and we looked at the profile of road surfaces and the quality challenges associated with that, and the seasonal impact of the winter season on the non-winter season. Next slide, please. What we found is that there is quite a profound impact from the winter season in terms of accumulated banked loo time that carries forward from the winter season. There's a significant amount of loo time and paid overtime from the winter season. And one of the problems is we're sort of cannibalizing the available non-winter hours that are available in the core of the season. And that's a function of vacation and loo time. And with the current flexibility that staff have to schedule vacation time at a time of their choosing and to max out loo time up to 72 hours, there's a significant reduction in what you think are the available hours available to execute all of the scheduled non-winter work. And what the data shows us is that that work is not getting done. The budgets for non-winter maintenance are consistently being underspent across a wide range of activities. It's not from lack of effort, it's from lack of capacity. And we're recommending that the town investigate adjusting its bank blue time maximums. We're recommending that the town investigate a more managed approach to the allocation of vacations. I recognize those may have collective bargaining implications and hurdles to overcome moving forward, but it's important to be able to ensure that the budgeted time for the non-winter maintenance business is actually available. On the technology side, as we said, we want to make sure that the maintenance management system that staff are looking into right now is robust and that its activity-based functionality meets the township's needs around both winter and non-winter. And we're recommending that the roads non-winter maintenance program could be a beta, the first township service to be rolled out with your new maintenance management system that is poised to be put in place. Next slide. When it comes again to key performance indicators, we've recommended a Get Start package of key performance indicators. Again, focus with your new maintenance management system of actually being able to track countable units of work, the number of activity-based hours by categories, and the number of productive hours that are available. Our unit cost, we want to price those, and then we want to look at quality, which is the percentage of the planned work that we said we'd get done versus how much we actually get done. As I mentioned, there's a big discrepancy right now between planned work versus actual work, and that's something we want to monitor and target moving forward and reduce that gap. And final slide for me. Again, we want to be able to, in the non-winter business, as we did in the winter business, use these performance indicators to set targets, embed those targets in the budget, and turn the budget into a contract. When council allocates a certain number of planned maintenance hours of various types to the road budget, we want to know that that work is going to be able to get done and that that contract is able to get met. And when we put maintenance management tracking systems in place, we'll be in a much better position to actually track countable units of work against the planned units. So again, as was the case with winter, we want to turn the budget on its head, start with targets, and then move backwards to the resources that we need. That sort of wraps up my section of the work, and I'll throw it over now for the hard surfacing review from Sam.
Thanks, Todd. Good evening, everyone. As mentioned, my name is Sam Shannon from Dillon Consulting, and I was responsible for putting together the road hard surfacing strategy, which I will be presenting to you this evening. Next slide. So what we did in the guiding principles that we used when we put this road servicing strategy together was how we could provide an improved overall long-term network condition for the township and how we could reduce overall maintenance costs for the network as a whole. And so generally what we did as part of our review was we took the completed road condition assessment that was already done in 2019 by 4 roads, and we just expanded on that as our base point. And essentially what we looked to do was just provide guidance for a hard surfacing implementation strategy that best aligned with the current and forecasted capital budget from 2021 through to 2025 and look to upgrade the existing gravel road network within the township. Next slide. So speaking to the current state of analysis of the existing gravel road network itself, we took a look at what the existing allocated / forecasted budget was as part of the capital budget program currently from 2021 through to 2025 and noted that about $4.9 million was either allocated or forecasted. And we also further looked at if there was in fact a dedicated budget for specific hard road top conversion that wasn't already dedicated to a project specific itself, and we did not find one. Overall, it appeared that the gravel road inventory was found to be in poor condition. Again, this is based on the work that was done by Four Roads Management. With the gravel road conversion over time being the recommended strategy that they put forward as part of that report, which is what we expanded on. And so what we did was we took the existing conversion matrix that they put together and we better aligned that with what we believe to be important criteria when looking to upgrade gravel roads to hard surface. And so just to follow up on what Todd had mentioned previously, just shy of 50% of the roads currently within the township are gravel roads, with the average condition being a 66.26, which is classified as poor. And overall, it equates to about 191 centerline kilometers of gravel road. Next slide. And so this was the conversion matrix that was done as part of the Four Roads Management Report, which we then expanded on to what we felt were important criteria in determining what roads were good candidates for conversion. And the three primary candidates that we feel are important when looking to convert from gravel to hard surfaces, what the AADT of the road is, and if it's greater than 400, how that road segment itself fits into the overall connectivity of the network and the surrounding road segments that are there, and if the road segment is or is not a stranded road segment. And we feel that stranded is an important one because there are a lot of road segments that only have one in and might be deemed dead end. And these road segments are important because from a maintenance perspective, they're usually fairly high in cost. And that was an important one in our consideration on conversion. Next slide. And so with that in mind, we came up with a tiered system that we broke the road segments into, the gravel road segments, with tiers 1 through 3 being what we took the conversion matrix to, and we then broke each road segment into one of those first 3 tiers. So tier 1 would be roads that would overall improve the network connectivity and did have an AADT that was either greater to or equal to 400. And then after that, we looked at segments that would improve the overall connectivity, but did not have an AADT equal to or greater than 400. And this also assumed that there would be sections of gravel roadway that are already surrounded by hard road surfaces. And so they would fall under tier 2. And then tier 3 being the stranded road segments that, again, may or may not have an AADT equal to or greater than 400. All roads that did not fall within tiers 1 to 3, we just deemed as tiered 4, which you see here as the remaining segments. So overall, from tiers 1 through 3, that equated to about 72.8 total centerline kilometers of existing gravel road that would be candidate for conversion to hard service. Next slide, please. So utilizing those tiers and the available budget information that we did have, we further expanded upon those tiers and came up with a recommendation strategy on how the township might go about implementing conversion from the gravel to hardtop. And we came up with what we're recommending as a 3-phased approach in order to systematically complete these upgrades, which you can see here. So phase 1, we're recommending, which would be hardtop conversion of road segments that were completed in the previous year as part of the township's gravel road top-up program. So as part of the current and forecasted capital budget, there are already candidate roads in there that are included as part of a gravel road top-up program. We feel that putting these at phase 1 will save the township money, and that a lot of the base conditions underneath the asphalt itself will get taken care of as part of this program. So when you come through to hard surface some the next year, there will be minimal works to be completed. The next phase would be, well, sorry, that first phase would take us pretty much from 2021 through to 2024, because based on budget alone, those gravel roads pretty much occupy the entirety of 2021 through to 2024. So the second phase of that would be undertaking the recommended road segments that we recommended as part of 2025. And then finally, we're recommending the hard conversion of the remaining road segments that followed the 3-tiered system that I mentioned above. Next slide, please. And so utilizing both that tiered and phased approach, what we did was we looked at every road segment and we worked in consultation with the township staff to determine costs for both, per meter cost for both what we deemed as rural road segments or semi-urban and residential cluster segments. So we came up with two unit costs that were per meter for those two roadway environment types. And we came up with estimated total costs for each phase, utilizing those costs, which again is further detailed in the report itself. So ultimately, what we are recommending the township look into in conjunction with these upgrades is likely undertake additional studies and/or investigations to further inform what may or may not be required as far as each individual road segment itself goes. And then completely apart from all of this program that we are recommending, it is recommended that further analysis of the existing gravel roadways themselves is looked at a greater scale to determine the best order of operations for maintenance based on the PCR value alone, which I mentioned previously was deemed to be in poor condition. I believe that's everything for me. Thanks.
All right, thanks, Sam. So moving on to the next slide here, Public Works Depots Building Condition Assessment. There were two more components to this project. We'll give some high-level information around the Public Works Depot project. So this is the asset management component where we sent a team on site to do a visual condition assessment of the facilities. We did an energy audit and identified energy saving measures, and we assessed the storage requirements for sand and salt. Next slide, please. We had a team that addressed architectural, structural, mechanical, electrical, and site civil. Next slide, please. And each of these facilities, the Port Perry Depot also has a storage shed and a sand salt dome. And we have the location and the replacement estimates here for those facilities. And the Blackstock Depot has the depot and the sand salt dome and the replacement costs there. Next slide. So the Port Perry Depot, we found that the architectural structural was generally in poor condition, mechanical, electrical in fair, and site civil in fair, moving to poor. And we've implemented and identified the capital works that would be required over the next 10-year period. We've done that for Port Perry Depot. Next slide. As well as the Port Perry storage shed. And the next slide. The Blackstock Depot, architectural, structural, good, mechanical, electrical, fair, and site civil, fair to poor. Again, here's the capital requirements to invest in the facility. Next slide. And we have this salt sand dome in poor condition, structural, architectural, mechanical, electrical is in good. Next slide shows the sort of the investment profile over the next 10 years. So there's about $750,000 of backlog requirement for renewal replacement. And then there's investment in the short term, the medium term, and then longer term. Overall investment of just over $1.2 million required to maintain the level of service for these facilities. Next slide.
Excuse me, it's coming up to half an hour, and I know that you had some technical difficulties. I'll give you another 2 or 3 minutes. How is it going?
We're going to wrap up. So thank you.
Okay, thank you.
So Todd had mentioned earlier the opportunity to look at the two depots and identify the usage of those depots. So the main depot scenario at Port Perry and a refill station in Blackstock. So we have some information in the report around that. Next slide. Next slide. And the next slide. So we're going to talk. Next slide, thank you. Talk about the energy audit. So the energy audit took a look at the two facilities and found that possibility of $14,200 in annual savings across the facility portfolio with energy conservation measures. Some investment is required in order to achieve that. Next slide. We have 8 energy measures here at the Port Perry Depot and showing the estimated payback period. Next slide. And then similarly for Blackstock Depot, what investment would be required and the potential annual savings. Next slide. And storage requirements for sand and salt. We were specifically asked to look at this, and there is a recommendation that following best practices, it's recommended that there be more storage on site for sand and salt. So there's more information in the report. Next slide. And next slide. And the next slide. So I just do spend a moment. Next slide, please. Just jump into the fleet review. Thank you. Yes, moving into fleet review. So next slide, please. So the fleet analysis looked at the inventory data and financials, and we also did a survey to examine industry management best practices. Next slide. So under fleet, municipality has 82 active vehicles in licensed and unlicensed. We looked at your maintenance costs that you have for your facilities. What your average fleet operating budget is $460,000 per year from the period from 2017 to 2019. And we show on a pie chart there how your fleet shows up. Next slide. We have key recommendations. There's 4. One is, the first one is on right sizing vehicles to ensure that at the time of replacement of your vehicles, that in fact you are replacing with what you actually, the right size of vehicle for what you need for the future. The fleet right sizing to see, taking a look at low kilometer usage on vehicles, whether you need to replace those vehicles or whether you can share between departments. Looking at recommendation 3 is around improving the fleet maintenance and usage tracking so that there would be more information and data around how the vehicles are used and the cost to maintain the fleet. And then a 4th recommendation around fleet optimization to look at when to purchase and when to consider leasing strategies. Next slide. And then the next slides, just have a next slide, just a little bit more detail on each of those recommendations. So I'm going to wrap it up there. I know that we're out of time. It was a very exciting project. Next slide. Lots of key components, and we're looking forward to questions that you may have at this point. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation tonight, and it certainly is a lot of work that's been put into this review and a lot of data for us to digest. I'm going to ask for a motion, please, to receive and refer the report to refer to the report 10.2.1. Councillor Ross and Councillor Kiesebrink. Could I have the roll call, please, for all in favor? And then we will move to the report. Madam Clerk, or Ms. Frey?
Sandra, are you putting that up, or would you like me to read it out?
Yeah, you can. Well, it's just to receive and refer the report to 10.2.1.
Correct. Okay. Councillor Brown?
In favor.
Councillor Guido?
In favor.
Councillor McDougall?
In favor.
Councillor Kiesebrink?
In favor.
Councillor Ross?
In favor.
Councillor Watton?
In favor.
And Mayor Drew?
Thank you. Yes, in favor. So thank you. And I'm going to bring, with Council's indulgence, I'm going to bring the report 10.2.1 forward. I've asked staff to come up with wording on a further recommendation to move forward on this review. We don't want the perception that the review could be shelved, but will be taken seriously. We recognize that in reality, we have to consider the recommendations in the report, but also consider the financial constraints, our reserves in place for the purposes of implementation, and balance that with our day-to-day experience with the assets of our township. So the recommendation reads, I don't know, where is it now? That's that the report COMS 2021-007 Road Maintenance Modernization Review be received, and that staff review the recommendations provided by Dillon Consulting Limited in consideration with funding availability with other township priorities, and develop a plan for council's consideration on how to move forward on the highest priority recommendations. So could I have a mover for that, please? Councillor McDougall, is that your hand up for the motion?
No, Madam Mayor, I was wondering when we got to ask some questions of the
You will
Democrats.
ask questions once the motion is on the floor.
Okay. thank you,
Councillor
Madam Mayor.
Watton, are you moving the motion?
I am, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, and seconded by Councillor Brown. So I will ask, first of all, our CAO, Ken Nix, and then I will call on Director Coleman for their comments. Mr. CAO. You're on. Okay.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I know Council will have a lot of questions on this report and the presentation. And I really wanted just to reinforce the issue that Mayor Chu just identified. There are a number of good recommendations in this report and a number that staff had considered, but we just can't push a button and have them magically in place. So I think it's important to understand and remember that there are financial, technical, staff resource limitations in place, in addition to all the pressures and priorities that the township is facing. So as a result, afterwards, staff will have to go back and evaluate the recommendations. We'll have to prioritize based on what is realistically achievable, considering our limitations, and balance those with the benefit that would be achieved for the municipality. However, the one thing is that even though we can't do it all at once or do some of them at once, much like the investment in infrastructure, we can't lose sight of what's needed, and we need to keep moving forward and continue taking steps to deliver on some of the higher priority recommendations. So thank you for allowing me the chance to introduce that concept.
Thank you, Mr. CAO. Director Coleman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. First, I'd like to thank Dillon Consulting. There's a lot of hard work gone into this and a lot of good recommendations that they're making. And to thank Rob Frasca and my team that they spent a lot of hours digging up information to help support this report. As I said, there's a lot of good recommendations here, and staff will definitely be going through it and seeing what we can fit into our work plan and what we can fit into our operating capital budgets going forward. And yes, we'll be happy to come back to council and present a plan of, what we consider the highest priorities and how they can be moved forward.
Okay. Thank you, Director Coleman. Now we'll go to questions from council. I did have a number of questions flagged myself, but I feel confident that if we pass this along to staff to study the recommendations and as our motion says. So I'll probably hold my questions, but I see Councillor Watton, your hand is up. Would you care to ask a question?
Yes, please. Thank you, Madam Mayor. And thank you to the consultants. I thought it was an awesome report, and some things we know and some things I didn't know. And so it was very thorough, and to staff that helped populate the information to help you create the report. Thank you. I just do have a couple of questions. And the first one is on, I believe it's on slide 15, which speaks to the status quo for the public works depots, either the status quo or the scenario number 4. Would I be correct in assuming that, or perhaps you can give me, I know that we don't have a number 1 for the status quo that speaks to non-productive time. Would I be correct in thinking that is a 0%?
Through the chair, we had to establish a baseline of efficiency and productivity to reference the other scenarios, and the status quo simply became the baseline. So the other scenarios, we referenced their productivity up or down movement from the status quo scenario of the 2 depots that you have functional right now.
And do we know what non-productive status quo is?
Well, again,
did I miss that, or am I not misunderstanding, or am I not understanding?
So again, the current situation becomes the reference point for the simulation where we looked at changes. And And so the current level of, blade up or blade down time became that sort of reference point. The detailed modeling would show you what those values were in the technical appendices that comes with the report. None of the scenarios generated the same level of efficiency as the status quo. Option 4 came the closest, which was the maintenance of the Blackstock resupply depot. And again, what's driving, again through the chair, what's driving this analysis is, the asset management imperatives of reinvesting in, one or two depots. And so eventually council will need to weigh the performance impacts that we see in this kind of a simulation against the costs of refurbishing a depot versus perhaps less expensive refurbishing of a satellite location like the Blackstock location that would really just continue to function as a resupply depot. And so again, this was meant to inform your decision about to support the decision you have going forward in your capital budget about those depots.
Okay. And so just further, not further to that point, but if I were to ask you, what would the single main recommendation be with respect to the winter road maintenance? What would your comment be? What would be the most important thing that we should look at, given that we can't look at it all? Would it be the technology, or would it be the workforce? And maybe that's not a fair question, because I know you analyzed it.
It's a very fair question. You're asking us for our professional advice, and I'm happy to provide it. The thing about the staffing recommendation is that those become self-financing by view of the fact that we are essentially trading in time and a half overtime hours to fund straight time hours to fund those contracts. But the result of this would be, in a typical winter, there would still be overtime winter events that you would have to respond to. So that's not strictly speaking cost neutral. But definitely, I think the main priority, if it were me, I would be looking at the relatively limited technology upgrade costs, recognizing that there would be a return on investment in likely reduction in salt and material costs associated with that. And in fact, just a 10% reduction in salt and material costs would fund the AVL upgrade and the spreader technology upgrades that you would require as a result of those recommendations. So those could very easily be self-funded recommendations.
Okay, that's terrific. Thank you. That concludes my questions, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Watton. Councillor McDougall, you had this report pulled. Do you have a question?
Yes, I do, Madam Mayor. I have a couple questions. Thank you very much for the report, everybody, Dillon Consulting, and thanks for staff for participating in this. A question I have is with regards to the hard surfacing strategy between 22 and 25, year 2022 and 2025, there's about $46 million that's to go into the hard surfacing strategy. I'm assuming that the idea of moving in towards a hard surfacing strategy is that you will see the savings in the operational side by having those roads hard surfaced. Is there any sort of mathematics behind that would say, well, without saying where's the money going to come from, but saying it's worthwhile trying to find the money to do that? Is there any sort of calculations on that?
Through the chair, what we did when we came up with the cost for the 2022 through to 2025 and even beyond 2025 was, like I mentioned, we, in consultation with the staff, we came up with a per meter cost for what we deemed as two different types of road environments, I'll call them. The first one being rural and the second one being residential cluster and semi-urban. And so we essentially took what would be deemed as a road segment, the total length and the per linear meter cost and came up with a material cost itself. Above and beyond those material costs, we estimated what the labor costs might be. And then just based on comparables within the area, we came up with a percentage split of what we think the cost estimate might look like for contract administration, construction inspection, geotechnical items, general items, and contingency. And then furthermore, a percentage split for what we estimate the drainage improvements and restoration costs may or may not be. All of these costs we came up with were again based on working with staff and coming up with averages of costs that have been seen in the area previously leading up to us undertaking this review. So the costs that we came up with were strictly per linear meter cost and percentage splits of material and labor, and then items related to construction and or restoration. But not necessarily looking at where we might use saved money to pay for other sections of hard surfacing.
Sorry, through you, Madam Mayor. Just to follow up, so we don't actually know how much savings we would see other than a better tarmac to run on. We're not sure in terms of how much savings we would see by hard surfacing these roads.
Through the chair. Yeah, that's one way to look at it. I mean, this again, going back to what I had presented previously, we first and foremost look to phase the recommendations around aligning with what road segments are already included in the township's plans as far as gravel goes. We suspect that a lot of these costs will come down while aligning with those, but again, in coming up with these costs, we just have to work with the numbers that we have. So there is definitely an opportunity that most definitely following phase one in terms of aligning with what the township already has planned for a lot of these road segments would likely bring these costs down and save some money. And two, once you do start to undertake these improvements, there will obviously be an overall shift in how the network is used, just based on if you start paving road segments, people are going to use them, and that will have impacts on obviously how the overall network is used and where maintenance budget may or may not have to go, given that while one road might be highly used now, if something else gets paved, the AADT on something else might come down, and in turn those maintenance costs will come down also. But without doing modeling, I'll say, those are things that are somewhat hard to predict.
Okay, thank you. Further through, if I might, Madam Mayor, a question with regards to considerations of the works depots. How come we didn't consider a possibility of a different location than either of the other two depots? I'm not sure if the island would possibly work, or is that not a scenario that could be considered?
Through the chair, I mean, I suppose an indefinite number of scenarios could be considered theoretically. We finite budget, finite time, finite capacity. We started with what we thought were the most likely scenarios, which were the two existing depots and the proven operational merits of the Blackstock location. And but hypothetically, the kind of transportation modeling that we did, we could, that modeling could have been extended to multiple locations. There's nothing stopping that from happening. We simply, it's a simplified simulation, and we thought that starting with the two status quo facilities made a lot of sense.
Sorry, just through you, Madam Mayor. If we were to look at possibly a future centralized depot in the future, we could possibly ask to tweak that model and figure out where the best location would be to maximize performance.
The model has those the transportation modeling firm Transnomis that does that work for Performance Concepts Consulting could look at an indefinite number of scenarios about where you wanted to locate that depot, and then again, a traffic simulation, moving all the snowplows out to their routes for the 12-hour event, having them come back to that location. We simply assumed that from a financial point of view, that the fact that you already own the land for the two locations that we had, and if you were going to sort of consolidate and operationally upgrade one of them, it made sense to us, we assume from a fiscal point of view, to take the locations you've got. But yeah, there's nothing stopping the town from exploring that moving forward with the modeling that was done.
Okay, very good. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you very much. Councillor Ross and Councillor Brown pulled this report as well, and I see Councillor Kieserbrink's hands up. Councillor Ross, please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you to our guests tonight. First question is in regards, I guess, Todd, you brought this up in your presentation in regards to the two models. You mentioned the results-based model and then the model which we're currently using, which is more of this is what we have financially, let's see what we can do with it model. What are the benefits of moving to the results-based model, and what is needed to make that change to that model?
So through the chair, any level of effort-based budgeting model, of course, is dealing with a certain amount of risk. As the reason we plow roads is to deal with risk, traffic, traveling public safety risk, as well as litigation risk, because we have a legal requirement to have minimum maintenance standards achieved on those roads. From a financial point of view, the current level of effort that you have, as I mentioned, allows you to deploy a strong single shift on a Monday to Friday basis across the network. We have staff and machinery deployed to do the work. Mother Nature being the way Mother Nature is, it can also snow on Saturdays and Sundays. So of course, there's no greater probability of a winter event happening on a Wednesday than a Saturday or a Sunday. So there are 2 days a week that are essentially unfunded with a straight time response. And from a risk management deployment point of view, we are depending on staff who have the collectively bargained right not to report to work for overtime. And God bless them that they do. But we are dependent on that overtime allocation to move forward and deal with work in the evenings or on weekends if we have a winter event. What the results-based model would say is that we want to be able to meet the minimum maintenance standards for the cleanup at the end of any winter event. We want to be able to deploy every time there's accumulated precipitation of between 5 and 8 centimeters of snow to launch a winter event. And we need to have due regard for how many winter events we actually have in a year and make sure we have the resources deployed to deal with those. And if we do, and we have a budget contract around that, we know what our response times would be. We know how many winter events we have planned into the season, and we could review the results, the timeliness of our response at the level of resourcing for the level of events we planned. Doesn't mean there won't be overtime required if we have a heavier winter than normal. That may well still be the case. And in order to deal with the uncertainty of the winter, a winter stabilization reserve is an issue that was brought forward in our report as well. So again, it becomes a contract with council, the results become stable and well-known, and it's a more effective way of managing risk, albeit it probably has a higher cost than the level of effort-driven model, but the level of effort-driven model has the risk that if we fail to meet a performance standard where the municipality is deeply exposed when it comes to litigation or to a tragic public safety risk exposure. So it's all about risk.
Great. Okay, perfect. Another question, a good segue is that it's, cost comes into it. With the recommendations that you've given throughout this report, some of them have an idea of what kind of cost savings would be involved. Recently spoke about it, a 10% reduction in salt and sand would be able to pay for certain items. Throughout all of it, how much has cost come into play with your recommendations, if it has, or are we looking at a lot of blue sky scenarios here that cost wasn't really taken into effect?
I can respond to my component of the work. I'm sure that my colleagues at Dillon have thoughts on this from a hard surfacing strategy point of view. And the operational review portion of this that I led we certainly understand, as CAO Nix mentioned, that all municipalities have finite resources, and they have to be very careful about how they deploy those finite resources. I would note that the staffing recommendations would essentially be funded, the additional contracting to be able to give you resources that were deployed on evenings and weekends would be funded by existing levels of overtime spending that we've seen historically already in place. I would note that the technology recommendations, we have a good degree of confidence that the resulting efficiencies associated with actually understanding how much salt and sand we're using and rationalizing that with planned spread rates, as opposed to spread rates that we really don't understand right now because we don't have scales and we don't have spreader technology that we can depend on, that would, we're pretty confident that would pay a pretty significant dividend. And the 10%, while it's an example, we believe it's an example that probably has a high degree of probability of occurring.
Okay, great. And maybe Darla, you could comment also, perhaps.
I'm sorry, who did you ask for, Councillor Ross?
Either one of the other Todd's colleagues would be great, just to get an idea.
Any other members from the delegation like to comment on that question?
Yes, thank you. And through the chair, the response to the question around was cost savings driving the recommendations that we brought forward? Not exclusively. The project was defined around modernization of service delivery. We looked through a couple of different lenses around being able to improve the productivity, improve the level of service, or maintain a consistent level of service, or more likely to deliver consistently. Level of service, we looked at risk and we looked at performance. And so it was through those various aspects that we came up with the understanding of the as-is operations and looked towards the as-should-be operations that generated the recommendations.
Okay, that's perfect. That's what I was looking for. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Councillor Brown, did you still have some questions?
Yeah, I had 27 of them, Madam Mayor, but I've whittled them down to just a handful. Most of these should be for Director Coleman, I think, although the presenters may want to chip in, and thank you for your presentation tonight. Page 4 of 6 of the report, Director Coleman, I'm just wondering an example. I had it written down as an example of an average annual daily traffic count greater than 400 vehicles per day. I guess there's just the one in the township. So this gravel road should be #1 in terms of needing paving as soon as possible. Would I be correct in suggesting that would be Old Simcoe Road from line 8 to line 10?
Director Coleman or Mr. Frasca?
I can respond, Madam Mayor, to the councillor. It's actually the section not from line 8, but from Whitfield Road to line 10 on Old Scugog. I understand from the report that that's the only section that has gravel road that has more than 400 vehicles per day.
Okay, thank you. Page 28 of 91 of the Modernization Review, Attachment 1. It's regarding septic and wells at the Port Perry Depot. If the system doesn't meet minimum spacing for setbacks from water wells, and it poses a health and environmental risk, how quickly can we act to fix this problem? And the same with the catch basins.
Madam Mayor, I can start that. Mr. Frasca might have something to add. It's not something that can be done quickly, but it is something that we have been monitoring. We do take water quality samples and have them tested at the region. And for drinking water, it's bottled water that is used at both of the depots. Mr. Frasca, do you have anything to add on that, or?
Yeah, so what we've done is we've had testing done on both depots for water sampling, and the result, we've added UV lighting and filtering to help treat the water. We've also added signs in the depot so that that water that we use within the depot is not to be drink or use to wash your face. So we just wash our hands with that water and use it for toiletry. We actually bring in drinking water and other water supplies. So, but we do have it tested, and it is meeting regulations right now.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Further then, page 36 of 91, operations yard, and this is in the same attachment. Much less maintenance effort and cost will be required to operate the site and stormwater controls if the yard is paved. Do we have money for that? Is it in the budget?
Director Coleman?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor, it is not currently in our capital budget or our 5-year forecast.
Okay, one final question then, if I may, Madam Mayor.
Please.
Attachment 2, page 20 of 60 regarding the staffing for winter events, and it's been discussed already. 2 out of every week, Scugog has 0 hours of straight time deployed hours for winter control. So to be clear, we have to, and it's been ironed out anyway, I think, but I'll mention it. We have nobody for weekend snow events unless they answer a call for overtime. And this is recommending that we hire part-time people and save the overtime costs. So I understand that's the recommendation, but I would like either the directors or Mr. Frasca's opinion as to how easy that's to be done.
I can answer that, Madam Mayor.
Please go ahead.
To the councillor, there's definitely challenges with that. We have a collective agreement in place right now that if we hired seasonal people, they would have to follow the same hours of work as our permanent staff. So scheduling people for 40 hours a week on weekends and weeknights is something that would have to be negotiated with the union, probably at the next bargaining time. And also, as mentioned by the consultant today, if there's a light snow on a weekend, these 2 people could address the main roads, but they couldn't get to all the roads. If it was anything significant, we would have to do a full call in anyways, and there would still be overtime costs. So it would likely not be a cost neutral item because, as mentioned, it snows on weekends too, and we would need more than 2 people to clear our 413 kilometers of roads.
Okay, thank you for the answers. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Kiesebrink.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was just wanting clarification. I'm not sure who the right person is to ask, but I believe that this report was implemented because we received funding from the province towards modernization. Is that correct?
Director Coleman, I believe it is.
Yes, through you, Madam Mayor, Councillor, we made an application for funding and we received 100% funding from the province for this review.
So with the information generated from this report, if there were future provincial,
yes,
if there were future funding coming from the province, would we be able to use the substance of this report to substantiate a request for, say, future technology like the weigh scales or the spreader technology, or even our dome improvements? If some future funding was announced, we could utilize the results of this report to advocate, to say we would like to apply and here's why.
Director?
Through you, Madam Mayor, the councillor, I'm very hopeful that will be the case. Obviously, with grant opportunities, we never know what's coming our way, but I was hopeful that if we identified things in this review, that there could potentially be future funding to help us implement some of these modernizations.
So could staff potentially report back to us? Obviously, we're all hearing this tonight and we haven't had time to digest it yet, but in a future report to council to maybe let us know about these staffing adjustments that have been recommended regarding the unfunded weekend response for winter event evenings and weekends, as an example.
Councillor Kiesebrink, I think part 2 of the motion kind of addresses
Correct.
that. Yeah.
Correct.
Director Coleman? Would you like to add anything, Director Coleman, to that?
No, I think that covers it.
great.
Okay.
And one last, if I could, Madam Mayor.
Yes, please.
We've typically in the past been told that it's important to upgrade our current roads that have failed and or are failing, our paved roads, before resurfacing.
Oh, I think we've lost you, Councillor Kiesebrink. If you're still there, Councillor Kiesebrink, I think there is a report later on in the agenda that talks about road pavement preservation. I'm not sure if that's the type of thing that you're looking for, but that will be a contract award. Are you still with us, Councillor Kiesebrink?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I was just wondering if the recommendations of the report were going to modify the philosophy that we have been using to this point, which is that we would first need to fix the current paved roads before creating more paved roads from gravel surfaces. Thank you. That's my last question.
Okay, thank you. Is there somebody from the delegation that would address that question, please? Todd, are you, I see.
I'm here, Madam Mayor. That my colleagues from Dillon are the appropriate folks to talk about the relationship between new surfacing and existing surfacing. Sam, I hope, is still here, and he can probably take a run at that question if he heard it.
Yeah, sorry about that. I was having some technical difficulty. Through the chair, yes. Typically, I do definitely understand that. Usually, you try to address the roads that are failing first, and after that, you would try to systematically complete the remainder of the upgrades. And while we definitely agree with that approach, while one, it's difficult to predict what road may or may not fail, and two, I mean, looking strictly based off the PCR value alone, which I spoke about previously, the road network itself is deemed to be in poor condition, and so ultimately what we looked to do was try to, one, provide a tiered system of sort of grouping the roads into categories, and then two, how it might be gone about undertaking those roads systematically over a longer term. Again, recognizing that while it would likely definitely be the priority to address roads that are failing, it's also fairly difficult to predict what roads may or may not fail at any given time, given that even a road in good condition could fail before a road in poor condition.
Councillor Kiesebrink, does that address your question?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor.
Anything further? Okay, seeing none, I don't have any other. Councillor Ross, your hand is up. Is that from before?
Sorry, yes, it is. I'll take it.
That's okay. I see no other questions. So could I ask Sandra Frey to open the voting, please?
The vote is open, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
I don't see a vote for Councillor Guido or Councillor Kiesebrink.
Would you give a verbal,
in favor?
please?
In favor.
Thank you.
Voting is closed, Madam Mayor.
And thank you, and that is carried unanimously. Once again, thank you very much for your delegation tonight and your patience in answering our questions. I'm sure that you are delighted that this has come to a close. It's been a lot of work, and I want to thank you very much, and I certainly want to thank our staff as well who worked with you. So And now we will move on to 9.2, and I'll welcome Guy Luttrell and Marina Brock from the Heritage Advisory Committee. And thank you for your patience, waiting for your turn to come to the podium, so to speak. So I will call on you now to give your presentation, and you have 15 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of council. So we're going to give you a summation of our activity into 2020 and our planned 2021 action plan. So Marina was good enough to prepare all this documentation, and I'll turn it over to her for the presentation.
And my apologies, I said 15 minutes. I'm sorry, it's 5. Go ahead.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great, thank you. Madam Mayor, councillors and staff, as you know, 2020 was a challenge for everyone, including the Heritage Committee. We mastered online meetings. What we did do, we met, we managed to continue with our mandate, which was to provide advice regarding heritage status properties. We met with 7 Mile Island. We continued to liaise with many committees. We did process the Heritage Grant for 1 application, but unfortunately, because of COVID, that work had to be postponed, and that did not go forward for 2020. We consulted with information on the Town Hall bell tower, and let's see, I'm just using my notes here. And many other projects had to be sort of put on hold. We actually also updated our mandate, so we changed the wording around the beginning here, our mandate information and vision. For 2021, we are going to continue to do many of those different activities that we did not complete in 2020. Reviewing cemeteries, our list of halls. One thing that's very important, though, is the grant program. So for 2021, we're excited that the information has gone out, and we've received 2 applications for sure, and hopefully a 3rd. So that's great news as business is starting to gear up to reopen, and owners are going to move forward to invest in their buildings in the downtown. So we see that as a very, very positive step for our committee and for our town. We will continue, as our mandate requires, to identify properties and place them on the Scugog Heritage Register. And the next 2 projects that show up on our work plan are, we want to start working on digitizing the Heritage Register. So for 2021, we will just start to work with staff and try to identify the work that has to be done, resources, funding, what it's going to take. So it's going to be sort of an exploration of this project, and we hope to try to get that on the books and get that moving forward. One project that is a focus, and we've already spent time on, is the Heritage Sign Guidelines document. This is a document that seeks to outline all of the sign requirements, specific sign requirements of the Heritage District. These guidelines differ slightly from the regular main central area guidelines, and they discuss specific things that we need to see in the Heritage District, such as lettering, sign materials, lighting, sign color, size, and the types of signs that are allowed. So we as a committee have been working on this document. We've presented it now to staff, and we're in the process of finalizing it. So the next steps of this Heritage Design Guideline document are with that, we're going to create a toolkit, and then we'd like to get that out to all members to business owners and to building owners in the Heritage Conservation District, and hope to liaise with the BIA on this very, very important project. E, did you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, the only thing, we're in our 3rd draft, and in going through this exercise, we discovered a glitch that I've talked to Kevin Heritage about, and as we're moving forward, part of the process will be to ask an amendment be done to bylaw 2819 that would require consultation with the Heritage Advisory Committee prior to approval of any signed bylaw variances in the main central area. This was, I believe, an omission or a glitch that occurred when bylaw 2819 was done, but we're back on track again with the help of Jasmine Stein, who reviewed all the documentation, and nice discussion with Kevin Heritage, who agreed that would come forward when the guidelines are going to be presented to council in the forthcoming future. Carry on, Marina.
Excellent. Okay. Another large item, as you can see from our budget ask, is the heritage plaque repair. These are plaques, these are specific plaques from Birdseye, and they were created and funded originally by the Parks and Rec Department. But these plaques are in disrepair and require a lot of they need to be repaired and replaced. So we know that area may hinge upon the approval of our budget and the budget of the entire council budget. So we'll wait on that, but we know that we can adjust how much work we do or how many plaques we do based on the budget approval. We will continue to give heritage advice, and one important area we have actually put a lot of input into is the street names. Peter Hvidston, a member of our committee, has spent a lot of time compiling a list of historic street names that are significant to our area and that we would like to see being used for new subdivisions and streets in Scugog. So the list is complete. There are some approved ones for Durham, have gone to Durham Region to be approved. But I think what we need to work on now is a process to ensure that this list gets presented to developers, to new developments when site plans are being discussed, and that maybe there can be some priority given to this very important list that seeks to honor many people and areas and events in our history in Scugog. And finally, this year will be, our committee will have extra education required as there has been some changes to the Ontario Heritage Act, and we will be learning how some of those changes may implicate or may concern heritage in our community. And that is our plan for 2021.
Well, thank you very much for your delegation. You certainly are a hardworking committee. We do appreciate that, and you had a very busy and challenging 2020 and exciting plans for 2021. So we do value your advice. At this point, I'm going to bring forward the report, which is 10.1.9. And I will ask for a motion to receive and approve the work plan, and then we'll take questions. So there's the motion on the screen, and I have a mover, Councillor McDougall and Councillor Kiesebrink. Could we call the question? Sorry, don't want to call the question yet. I have some people who have pulled this report. And I will call on Councillor Brown and then Councillor Guido.
Thank you, and through you, Madam Mayor. Regarding the work plan, page 4 of 10, if you're following along, we're just confirming that while the work plan asks for $3,400 for 4 plaques, Director Heritage can probably speak to this. I think that's been whittled down to 2, if I understand correctly. Would that be right?
Director Heritage?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor, that's correct. There are 2 of the 4 plaques that are in very, very poor shape that should be replaced in 2021. And what staff suggested to the committee was that to look into replacing the other 2 plaques in 2022 under that budget.
Okay, and just subsequent, just a comment. I have to say congratulations on the way that you handled this variance issue. Ms. Brock and Mr. Latre and Mr. Heritage for 3. I know Jasmine's in there as well in terms of work that she did, but you came across a problem, you discussed it amongst yourselves, you went to the source and got things solved. So I just wanted to say hats off and well done to all of you. That's it. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Councillor Brown. Councillor Guido.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I had previously pulled this, but I was going to rescind that pull because Ms. Brock did provide an explanation on the heritage sign design guideline, but I will ask a question to Marina if possible. I'm glad to see that you guys are working on this document. As far as contents of it, will it be a true guide to business and landlords as to what is and is not allowed when it comes to signage, so that they're educated from the start of the process rather than having to educate after a sign may have been already purchased or installed? Is that the intention of this?
Yeah, great question, Councillor Guido. Yes, it is the intention, and we tried to write it in layman's terms and with lots of pictures and with really a guide so someone can pick it up and look up the type of sign they want to produce, go to it, and it very quickly says what they can do and what they can't do.
That's wonderful. And I have to say, for those business owners and building owners that are familiar with the process, it can be somewhat easier. But for those new businesses that are starting up, it is quite a daunting process to understand the signage and the requirements. So I do applaud the committee for putting this into layman's terms so that it can be easily understood. So thank you very much for that work. And I also would like to thank your committee for the work in ensuring that our new street names do have heritage value and a tie back to our community. I really think it's very important that we ensure that there is a nod to history in any of our street names. So I appreciate that. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Guido. Councillor McDougall.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor, and I'd like to thank the Heritage Committee for all their hard work. I do have a question with regards to homes on the Heritage Registry. I know from glancing at the registry, there's a fair number of homes in the Ward 1 and town of Port Perry area. Not so much work has been done in Ward 4. My concern is that it's my understanding now that I believe it's getting harder and harder to get home insurance for homes that are on the registry because they are considered red flagged by insurance companies. Is there any way, I'm not sure, I think there's well over 400 or 500 homes on the registry. Is there any way that as this gets digitized that we can get this list down to a concentrated number of homes that would need to be on the registry? To you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Marina or Guy?
Maybe I could answer that. That's something we could certainly look at from the point of looking at closer the list. The one thing that regarding insurance, it is something of a concern. I brought it up 2 meetings ago, and I think a lot more work needs to be done to that. In speaking to one insurance broker, insurance companies are not like car insurance. They could just say no. I'm not insuring your house. And so there's a big hole in that industry regarding insuring homes with that are over 100 years old. For example, I have one broker that told me she has one company that will not insure any house that's over 100 years old. Does not matter what kind of condition it's in. It could be in pristine condition, but they're not interested. I think it's something that we're going to have to really look at. And even possibly get Lindsay Park involved from the provincial government, find out from other jurisdictions if they're starting to have a problem. I do know of a couple of properties that are starting to have big questions answered. They have to answer a lot of big questions, and it's getting more and more difficult to get insurance on the properties that are designated. And Councillor McDougall is right in saying that a lot of insurance companies red flag if they're on the register.
Thank you. Further, Councillor McDougall?
No, that's all. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Kieserbrink?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Director Heritage, I was just wondering, further to Guy and Marina's report and request with respect to heritage names and having a list kind of pre-approved. I know Council has already had some requests that were outside of this list by developers, and we did in fact support the Heritage Committee recommendations, as did the staff in their recommendation. Is there a way, further to their comments in their presentation, to get these names before developers earlier, before it gets as far down the road as what has happened in the past?
Director Heritage?
For you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor, yes, it is. One of the issues that we talked about at the last committee meeting was to ensure that the historical names are actually assigned to these draft plans of subdivision in the correct areas of the township. So for instance, if there was a name that was significant in Epsom, it would be assigned to an Epsom subdivision. So that's the kind of thing we're looking at right now in terms of the overall process and assigning names. As you know, names have to be approved by both the township and the region of Durham to ensure that there's no duplication among names throughout various municipalities. So that's a process we're looking at right now.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Further?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to thank both Guy and Marina for this excellent report. My one last question, in fact, was just related to their ask with respect to donations. In the, forgive me, and I probably should already know this, but is their ask already intact within the budget that we're looking at later? I'm not sure who the person is that could answer that for us.
Director Heritage?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor, there are certain asks that are already approved in the capital budget. For instance, the $20,000 Heritage Conservation Grant Program.
That's what I was asking about. You answered my question.
Yeah.
Thank you. I know how critical that is, especially in a pandemic year. And thank you again to both of you for your presentation.
Thank you, Councillor Kieserbrink. Councillor Watton?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. A couple of my questions have been answered, and I'm glad to hear that we will look at historical road names in the areas where they should be placed. I was a little, it's kind of a catch-22. I was struggling with the historical name for a brand new condominium building street. Just, to me, it didn't go hand in hand, but I understand a little better, more clearly why we are doing it. My question would be with respect, and again, back to the sign guidelines toolkit. And if I recall correctly, there is some concern with new businesses that come in with already pre-planned corporate signage that is supposed to be part of their business. Has this committee looked at ways to address that? Is that, does that become an exception because we don't want to turn businesses away? Or how is that being handled? If someone could answer that for me.
I may answer that. They've been, banks, for example, if they're, banks are a perfect example. Franchises are another example. They have their corporate colors. What we try and do is work with them to tone it down from a gloss maybe to a matte. We try and work with them to not have as much of their banners across. And if you'll recall the Royal Bank, when the front of the Royal Bank was redone and they had, they took their backlit signs down, we were able to work with them very well in coming up with, raised letters and a format that they were happy with, and I believe, the Heritage Committee was happy with. It's always a battle when situations like that arise. we lean on the grace of a heritage consultant that works out of Markham, who lives in Port Perry. So we've been able to sort of pick his brain on a pro bono basis and see how they handled it. And then we try and work with some advice from him and from staff, and to try and come to a compromise, because certainly we do not want to lose any business downtown, but we have to, try and work within a framework that heritage is still maintained. No backlit sign, no neon signs. We try and have raised lettering. We try and if they're, we try and have engraved letters. So we try and do as much as we can to recognize heritage signage.
Thank you, and that's great. And I think the toolkit will be a huge asset for moving that forward in a less controversial manner. So I'm really glad to hear that. And I guess, as you said, you have to take the one by one corporate ones on as they come along. So thank you very much to both of you for your presentation.
Thank you, Councillor Watton. I don't see any other hands. Ms. Fry, can you call the question, please?
Open for voting, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
Just waiting for Councillor Kiesebrink and Councillor Ross. Councillor Kiesebrink.
I'll vote in support. I can't see the casted motion on my screen, unfortunately. Thank you.
Thank you, and that's carried unanimously. Again, thank you very much for your presentations tonight, and please pass along our sincere appreciation to the rest of your committee. As has been mentioned, very hardworking committee, very committed to the heritage of Scugog Township, and once again, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, councillors. Good night.
Good night. And we will move now to the Scugog Tourism Advisory Committee, and the report is 10.1.12, and I will welcome Carrie Nicholson, the chair of the committee, to give a presentation. You have 5 minutes. Carrie?
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. Hello. I have extreme lag where I am, so bear with me. Good evening. Thank you, Mayor Drew and members of council and staff. I'm going to give you a quick summary of our 2020 activities. Like everyone else, it's quite brief. And then I will just move on to the action for 2021. Again, quite brief. We spent the year, as everyone, full of COVID responses, adapting to meeting structures, and adapting our lives and keeping our businesses afloat. But as a committee, we were able to still contribute and engage with a variety of tourism-related actions and projects locally, regionally, and provincially. We were able to contribute to the downtown CIP, input sessions directly, and also contributed to the waterfront action plans as well. And as individuals through the committee, we were able to contribute and be part of Ontario by Bike, the Tourism Industry Association of Ontario virtual conference, and many COVID response workshops, webinars, and impact surveys that were done through the region and central counties and through other organizations that link into tourism. We were also able to provide input on one of our action items for our strategy. The draft wayfinding strategy was presented to us, and we were able to make input on that. And we were actually able to begin work on our tourism ambassador program, which was another action plan item in the strategy and put on the slate for last year. Both of these were facilitated and supported by Durham Tourism and by Central Counties Tourism as well. During the year, we did see a couple of changes in our committee members. Kenna Kozak, when she left the Chamber of Commerce, was no longer our chamber representative, and she has been replaced by Michael Phillip, who's now representing the chamber. And our vice chair, Charlotte Hale, had to resign due to an inability to attend meetings. And we currently have one vacancy on this committee. We also ran into the challenges of having several meetings canceled through the year due to lack of quorum. And as we move forward, hopefully out of COVID life at some point, we can turn that attendance record around as this committee sort of finishes its first term as a committee. The challenge for us is that most of the individual committee members are actively working in the tourism sector, which is one of the sectors most heavily impacted by the pandemic. And we've had some split focus this year in keeping our own businesses going and keeping an eye on the tourism activities here in town. 2021 action, we are essentially carrying over from 2020. The key items that will be addressed this year are going to be our ambassador program and the show season event as two significant things. And the strategy in 2020 was a number, the key items would tie up a number of items in our tourism strategy. So the ambassador program, we have had several meetings. I've met with both Eleanor Cook and Kristen Chambers from Central Counties and Durham Tourism, respectively. And they have discussed with the committee. We have 3 phases for the ambassador program, and we've adapted to the virtualness of most of this, and we hope to see that project completed by the end of our 3rd quarter. And the other project, the shoulder season event, which should have happened at some point this past month, has been deferred over to the 2021-2022 season. And we will be taking that on a wait and see and planning A, B, and C strategies to accommodate COVID. And really, that's my report. I kept it short.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Carrie. Could I have, we'll bring that report forward, but could I have a motion, please, to receive the report and or the delegation and approve the 2021 work plan? Councillor McDougall and Councillor Brown. Questions? I did have Councillor Ross pull this report. So Councillor Ross, you have a question?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Probably a question to Director Heritage. It's in regards to the budget item that's listed for $1,000 being put towards the beautification of the open streets program. Just a follow-up question in regards to an email I sent earlier. It's my understanding that the open streets project is still in its infancy. Budget hasn't been created. The actual makeup of the working group to make this happen hasn't been put together. And in addition to that, we also have money that's been earmarked in a budget item, 2021 budget item already for events. Then my understanding that will assist with umbrellas and tables. My question is why we're splitting up the budget for the open streets project between the Tourism Advisory Committee and an actual township budget item.
Director Heritage.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor. In terms of the budget item under the Open Streets program and under seasonal events, it's basically earmarked for infrastructure in terms of, as you indicated, Councillor, in terms of tables, umbrellas, seating. It could be planters as well. Anything that the task force would deem to be appropriate to move forward. My understanding of the $1,000 that has been put aside in the budget from the Tourism Committee, it's allocated, considered for items such as promotional items, advertising, and a shared tourism beautification action or joint tourism information booth. So the components, I guess, that the $1,000 has been allocated for are different than what we were looking at under the Public Works budget on that specific line item.
Carrie Nicholson, did you want to address that question as well? I see your hand up.
I just thought I would jump in just to thank you, Kevin, for your response. It's very similar to mine. We are quite aware that the task force for the Queen Street project hasn't really gelled yet, but we did want to be responsive to the work we had done with the BIA and listening to their input and feedback from their experience with Queen Street last year. And the look of the street was one of the primary concerns, and we felt this is directly related to tours. Kevin has said that any beautification you're doing is very strategically sort of aimed towards that tourism activity, that there would be a joint tourism booth. We are looking at things that create really good curb appeal to help support tourism and support any work the BIA or the task force should decide to do.
Thank you. Councillor Ross, did you have a further question?
Just clarification. So I just understand from Director Heritage's answer that this is going to be for promotional material primarily, and then beautification secondarily. But then, Carrie, just you seemed like it was more to help the BIA out with beautification. I just want to make sure that because this is set up, that there's no confusion as to what the total cost is of this. And it's please don't take it that I'm against this. I want to see this work, and that's why I'm pushing the issue, is that we've designated $1,000 for beautification, but I'm just curious where that number came up with. $1,000 doesn't go very far for planter pots. Is that enough? Is it too much? I'd like to see the process of it.
Carrie?
I would say that yes, that we are still shooting a little in the dark because the project force hasn't set itself up, but we are looking at promotional advertising, anything that could be shared. I don't mean BIA specifically, but that action and that the funds we know aren't, are not a lot, but we're also aware there are other areas of the budget that the infrastructure piece, as Kevin had said earlier, could be taken care of. So this is us wanting to be engaged in any way we can. And the beautification wording, I don't know if Lori Bowers is in here tonight. I haven't looked at all the attendees. She could maybe speak to the wording of beautification, because I think there's more to it than just flower pots. It could be signage, things that encourage good protocols and such like.
Carrie, would it be fair to say that you are waiting to hear what the steering committee comes up with and what exactly is needed and how you can help out? Would that be fair to say?
I think so, yes, because we're trying to put in to anything that helps our tourism activities here in the town. So we want to be ready.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Bowers, did you want to add anything to that? If you're on the call, I believe.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Ross and Kevin and Carrie. I think we're landing on it now. I think perhaps in hindsight, the word beautification might have just maybe not been the correct terminology, but I think that in terms of the discussion around the table, and just to support the chair and her thoughts with regards to being ready, and we know it's early days and there's lots of talk to be had, but just ready on some of those items related to maybe some digital advertising, maybe some joint advertising between central counties and some of our partnership pieces, as well as some graphic design and branding input as it relates to signage. So it's less construction looking and more welcoming, for example.
Thank you. Is there anything further, Councillor Ross?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. So just to be clear, when the budget comes up, when we see what the meat and potatoes for this Open Streets project comes to fruition, and a budget's identified, the bulk of that will come from the special events budget line on the township side, and the $1,000 that's put towards the Tourism Advisory Committee budget is in excess of that to assist. Am I correct in that assumption?
Carrie?
Not having seen the other budgets in any great detail, perhaps Kevin Heritage could clarify that, but that's my understanding.
Okay.
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor. Yes, that is correct. That the budget put aside by the Tourism Committee would supplement the township's budget in this regard.
Perfect. That's great. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Guido.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And Councillor Ross asked the question that I'm sure is on many councillors' minds regarding the word beautification. And I would actually even consider taking it as far as asking if that word beautification may be appropriate to have it removed from the minutes that I'm sure will be endorsing shortly, just so that there is no confusion that that $1,000 is only to be earmarked towards beautification should this pilot move forward. And I do have another question on the page, I believe it's page 4 of 5 of the work plan. It alludes to the fact that the budget has been approved. I know that's wishful thinking and chances are it will be approved, but it just says that the budget was approved February 22nd and we haven't approved it yet. So. Just
it might be the 23rd by the time we approve it too.
It might be, but I did want to point that out, and perhaps if council would be in favor of removing the word beautification so that it's not misinterpreted at all with the intention of that money.
I think we could just take that as direction. Would that be fair, Director Heritage?
Yes, Madam Mayor, that would be fine.
Okay, thank you. Is that okay with you, Councillor Guido?
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Carrie, did you have your hand up still? Is that from before, or did you want to wrap up?
It's coming down. I'm just going to say thank you very much.
Oh, I think I do have one other question.
Fingers crossed we'll get to see. Oh.
We have one more question, Councillor Watton.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and not to belabor anything, or I certainly would support the removal of the word beautification, but how does that work when we are just receiving this information and endorsing the work plan? Does that go back then to the committee, or is that a recommendation from this council to the committee? I just ask for clarity. And as I said, I have personally, as I sit on that committee, I have no problem with it. And I don't think Carrie has any problem with it, but I'm just curious how that gets handled when these are just being received and endorsed.
Well, the work plan is being endorsed, and yes, the work plan will not have the word beautification in it now. I'm not sure I'm understanding. Director Heritage, could you provide any clarity on that?
Yes, Madam Mayor. I think the committee will be taking this direction from council and eliminating the word beautification from their work plan.
Councillor Watton, does that answer your question?
Sort of. It just well, I only, and I know it's getting late, and it's like changing the minutes from the Tourism Advisory Committee. So I would certainly welcome that it as a can it be, I don't know, can we make that in the motion that the word beautification is removed from the work plan, just for procedure?
Well, we can do that. I'm
concerned
if you're more comfortable with it. Okay.
I'm just concerned when we go back to the committee, that's all.
Okay, Councillor Watton, do you want to make an amendment to the motion that's on the floor?
I will make the amendment that the work plan be endorsed and that the wording, where is it? I have it in front of me somewhere. The word be endorsed, but the $1,000 go towards the open street project rather than, and have the word beautification removed. Does that work?
We'll tidy up the wording. I think everybody understands the intent.
Yeah.
Councillor Guido, did you want to second that amendment?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I will. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. To the amendment, any questions or comments on the amendment? Seeing none, can we call the question on the amendment, please? Ms. Fry.
Open to voting, Madam Mayor.
Okay, thank you.
I'm not seeing it, so I'll vote in favor.
Madam Mayor, I think I should declare pecuniary interest given that I have a tourism business. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, we will note that. Okay, that is carried unanimously with one with a declaration. To the amended, I don't have any other questioners, so to the amended motion, Ms. Fry, could you call the question, please?
I can do a roll call, Sandra. I think you have it up on the screen.
Yes,
there.
please.
Councillor Brown,
In favor.
Councillor Guido,
In favor.
Councillor McDougall,
In favor.
Councillor Keesbrink.
She's abstaining.
Oh, that's correct. Thank you.
Or-
Councillor Ross,
In favor.
Councillor Watton,
In favor.
and Mayor Drew.
In favor.
Thank you.
Thank you, Carrie, for your work, for being here tonight, and for your patience in waiting. It's a lengthy meeting tonight. Please pass along our thanks to your committee, a very hardworking committee, and we wish you well for 2021. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and good night.
Good night. Okay, we will now move along to 9.4, which is the Scugog Accessibility Advisory Committee and their annual update and 2021 work plan. And I welcome Bonnie Blackstock to make a presentation, and then we'll move to the report 10.1.13. Bonnie, are you with us?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor, and good evening.
Welcome.
Councillors and staff. This is my very first time doing such things, so please bear with me. In 2020, again, as everybody else, we found it very difficult to conduct any of our, lofty goals that we had set in our minds that we wanted to achieve. But we did try to come up with a few things and get a few things accomplished. We finalized the criteria for the Tip of the Hat program that we were wishing to revamp. So we wanted to complete a checklist so that if somebody presented a business that they would like to see receive the Tip of the Hat, we had a checklist that we could go through and we could verify whether or not they met the criteria. So we did complete that in 2020. We continue to maintain a working relationship with the mayor, councillors, and township staff by sharing information through the committee's minutes and offering advice. We didn't meet quorum for many of our meeting minutes, which hindered our ability to make decisions, which was unfortunate. We continue to liaise with additional committees when necessary. We did review 2 planning applications, one for Two Blokes Cidery and the other one was for Applewood Farm Winery. We reviewed their plans and we provided feedback to both of the businesses just from an accessibility standpoint. And the one business did make changes to their proposal regarding accessibility. So that was we were pretty pleased with that. We created an accessible considerations questionnaire that now can be given to new applicants so that it doesn't have to come to the committee necessarily every single time, that it's just, hey, these are some things you guys might want to think about when, planning. We met with concerned residents about sidewalk issues that they wanted us to address or the township to address. And at that meeting, Scugog staff were also there regarding the sidewalk procedures, so they were able to directly communicate with the concerned resident. Sorry, just flipping here. We also met with Durham Region Transit and provided input on the current changes and made to accommodate COVID-19 restrictions. So we did not use any of our 2020 budget. And now moving on to 2021, we are going to continue to provide training for all new advisory committee members, continue to provide accessible customer service training, continue to liaise with heritage and housing committees. We had some plans for 2020 about attending events. But we realized that the fire department were going to promote their database of residents with disabilities. And that was just an idea that we had as well. So we were just going to tack on to their information. So we were going to attend 2020 events, but unfortunately they were canceled. So hopefully we can start doing that again soon. Ensure accessibility information is current. We're going to do that ongoing. To Township of Scugog employees who have capabilities of posting information on the website. They have been receiving training on how to ensure accessibility standards are met. We're going to promote awareness through information sessions and events where applicable, and this is going to happen as the events occur. Of course, we don't know when those events will be in the future. However, once we do resume those, we will be definitely jumping on board. And that's just to promote awareness to the community about our committee and that, you might not see a lot of us, but we do exist and this is how you can get in touch with us. We were also going to finalize the tip of the hat label, and that's by summer of this year. And we were talking about creating and finalizing the new accessibility flag. We had been waiting for correspondence from Ajax regarding that flag. However, we have not received any as of yet, so we're looking at going in another direction. We're going to consider implementing charging stations, 2, I think, in the fall of 2021, and that's to help people who use scooters for mobility so that they don't have to worry about having to run out of batteries. That there will be 2 charging stations downtown so they can continue to enjoy their time. We're going to continue to attend accessibility forums ongoing as they arise. We also plan to organize a virtual annual joint health and safety accessibility or joint accessibility advisory committee information sharing session with Brock and Uxbridge townships. Of course, we're going to work on the accessibility multi-year plan for 2022 to 2026. And just basically look for other opportunities of community engagement. We're hoping to reconnect with the Focus magazine as they were going to run an article about the committee last year. So we're hopeful that we'll be able to do that again. And we're just going to continue to address and advocate for accessible transportation within Scugog. And that is all I have for my report. Now, Vice Chair Julie Harris is also here with us, and I'm not sure if she had anything to add. I missed anything.
Julie, if you're there, unmute your mic, and if you have something to add, we'd be glad to hear it.
No, I think I'm pretty good, thanks. Everything seemed to be covered. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you both for being here. will bring forward the report, and I will ask for a motion to receive the delegation and approve the 2021 work plan. Councillor Kiesebrink, seconder. Councillor Ross. Questions or comments? Councillor Watton.
I was just seconding the report. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Councillor McDougall, you had pulled this report. Do you have a question? Councillor McDougall, I think you might be muted. We'll get back to Councillor McDougall. Councillor Kiesebrink, did you have a question?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a comment. Just wanted to thank you for your first time. Great job, and really good job. Really loved the idea of the charging for scooters. Super. How are you planning on pursuing that? Do you have some ideas for fundraising, or what were your thoughts about that?
Well, they're actually not that expensive. So we had incorporated that into our budget of just purchasing them. We just needed to identify the two best locations to place them.
Awesome. Well, thank you again. Really appreciated that.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Sure, staff can help you with the ideal places to place them.
Yes.
Anything else, Councillor Kiesebrink?
No, that's all, Madam Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Councillor McDougall, are you with us? You wanted this report pulled.
Madam Mayor, Councillor McDougall's computer died, he said.
Oh dear.
Oh no.
Okay, perhaps he could speak to one of the committee members at another time. So, no other questions. I want to thank you, Bonnie, and your committee for all of the work you do. It was a very challenging year last year for you and for everybody else as well. And but you sound all geared up to do some great things in 2021. So the motion is up there, and I'll call for a mover. Oh, I did get a mover, sorry, and a seconder. So we're ready to call the question, Ms. Frey.
Open for voting, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
Just waiting on Councillor Watton and Councillor Kiesebrink.
Vote in support.
Again,
and I think Councillor McDougall might be on now.
Yes, Madam Mayor, thank you. I'm back. Sorry. Thank you very much. That's
okay, and we'll vote on this, but we'll get to your question if you still have a question.
No, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
You're fine. You're fine, Councillor McDougall?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay, thank you, and that is carried unanimously. So once again, thank you very much for your presentation tonight.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor and members of council. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Now we'll move to the Healthy Lake Scugog Steering Committee, and I guess that's me, and that's 10.1.14. So let me get to that page. You know, the Healthy Lake Scugog Committee does not only work on LSEP, the Lake Scugog Enhancement Project. We do look at other issues, and we have just got to get that report up here. So we work on other issues, and we have tremendous partnerships with and involvement of many of the ministries and the Kawartha Conservation and the Lake Stewards. The region is there, as you can see by the members that are listed on page or in that report. But we do share information on the health of the lake, and the report is there for your reading about all the accomplishments in 2020, and our work plan is outlined in 2021, and that was gone over by the committee. I won't go over each individual activity that we've got planned for 2021, but of course the main thing that is taking up a lot of our time and energy is, of course, the Lake Scugog Enhancement Project, and that is moving along very well with most of the approvals coming in from the different agencies and the ministries to complete the environmental assessment, which we have to do. Once all of those, and there are just very few comments and approvals to come in, but once we get them, then we can move forward with the final design, and then that will get us to where we can get a more accurate estimate on the cost. And then we're hoping for some major funding, and if that comes through, we will be able to start the project this year in the fall. It is a 2-year project, so it will be completed in 2022, probably in the fall. Director Coleman, is there anything that you would like to add?
No, Madam Mayor, I think you covered it all well.
Okay, so we'll bring the report forward and we'll ask for a motion to receive and approve the 2021 work plan. Councillor Kiesebrink, is your hand up for making the motion? Okay, I have Councillor Kiesebrink and Councillor Brown, and I'll take questions. Councillor Watton? Oh, sorry, no questions? Wow, Councillor Kiesebrink.
I'm having a terrible time with my mic. Thank you so much. I just wanted to say that we're all so excited about our lake and getting it to this stage. And I just really hope that everything comes together quickly and that we're able to finally get started. So just wanted to thank yourself and the whole committee for your work.
No, thank you. I see no other questions. Yes, this is an exciting project. It will certainly boost our tourism industry here in Scugog. It will certainly help the environmental aspects in Scugog and the lake. You know, it will deepen the lake. It will dispose and get rid of the some of the excess silt and the invasive species that we call them weeds, they call them aquatic growth. So, you know, it's going to be a big benefit. And of course, there's the trails and the wetland, which will be a huge tourist attraction, as well as clean the water before it gets into the lake. That's nature's kidneys, wetlands. So the motion is up there, and we have a mover and a seconder. Could we call the question, please, Ms. Frey?
Open for voting, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. And that's carried unanimously. I beg your pardon?
Voting is closed, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And it's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. We will move now to the consent agenda. And some of the reports, of course, we have dealt with. You'll see that the consent agenda is broken into 3 sections. The first section is the adoption of the minutes, and that's 10.1.1 through to 10.1.4. The next section is the receipt of advisory committee and board minutes for information. And then the third section is reports. I have some polls, 10.1.6, 10.1.7, 10.1.11, 10.2.3, 10.2.4, 0.5, and 0.6. Have I got that correct, Madam Clerk?
Yes, Madam Mayor, that's what I have noted.
Okay, are there any other polls? Seeing none, could I have a motion, please, to...
Sorry, Madam Mayor. I believe
yes?
Councillor Brown may have pulled 10.1.10.
10.1.10.
I did, Madam Mayor.
Yeah, it's listed on the motion. I just don't.
I'm sorry. Yes, I was thinking that we had dealt with that with reports, but we hadn't. So, okay, yes, we'll add those to the remainder. All those in favor of the recommendations?
Sorry, did we get a mover and a seconder for that?
No, might not have. So Councillor McDougall and Councillor Watton. Thank you. No questions or comments, no other polls. To the motion, please. Ms. Frey, could you call the question, please?
Open for voting, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. And that is carried unanimously. Thank you very much. The first report that was pulled is 10.1.6. And that is the Economic Development Advisory Committee. And that was pulled by Councillor Brown. Councillor Brown?
Thank you, and through you, Madam Mayor. Item 8 in new business, this is either for Director Coleman or Director Heritage. It references the downtown CIP. I just wanted to make sure we're waiting on the waterfront action plan before we return to engaging the downtown CIP. Is that right? I'm not sure of the timeline there.
Director Heritage?
Yes, through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor. We are awaiting the finalization of the waterfront action plan, and we intend to re-engage the CIP once that is completed. So we're looking at in the spring, and hopefully have it the downtown CIP completed by the fall of this year.
Great, thank you. That's it for that.
Thank you. Motion to approve or receive. Councillor Kiesebrink, second. Councillor Brown. No other questions or comments. Ms. Frey, will you call the question, please?
Open for voting, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. And that is carried unanimously. Thank you. 10.1.7, the Port Perry BIA January 12th minutes and report. 10.1.7, Councillor Brown, you pulled it. You have a question?
Just a clarification, actually. On page 2 of 13 in the minutes, it's referencing Marina Brock wants the street to be open. The quotation is M. Brock would like the street to be open in 2021. I just touched base with her on it because I don't think she's a huge proponent of the Open Streets project. Mm-hmm. So what I understood happened was there's a clarification that what was being meant there was the being open to traffic, not an open street as such. So I just wanted to have that on the record.
Okay, thank you very much. I presume that you will have that changed in the next BIA meeting, or Marina Brock may have it changed.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none. Mover, Councillor Brown?
Happy to. Yep, you bet.
And Councillor McDougall is seconding. No other questions or comments? All those in favor of receipt? Ms. Frey, will you call the question, please?
Open for voting, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
Voting is closed, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. That is carried unanimously. Was the other one, Madam Clerk, 10.1.10?
Yes, that's correct.
Yes. Okay, thank you. And that was pulled by Councillor Brown. You have a question or a comment?
Yes, Madam Mayor. Just an update if I can get one. Page 3 of 4. Partnered with Durham to provide level 2 electrical vehicle charging stations to be installed in 2021 at 2 locations. I guess I could ask Director Coleman if she'd be kind enough, for Director Heritage, I'm not sure whom. Where are we at with that, guys?
Through your, Madam Mayor, to the councillor, actually the person that could provide the most detail on that would be Kevin Arsenault.
Is he here?
He is.
Oh, right. Kevin Arsenault, please.
My apologies. What was the question? I was just prepping on the other 2 reports.
If I may, yeah. It says in page 3 of 4, partnered with Durham to provide level 2 electrical vehicle charging stations to be installed in 2021 at 2 locations. I'm just looking for an update on where we're at with that.
Absolutely. Through the mayor, we are still working with the region on finalizing a memorandum of understanding in terms of how the project money will be distributed. We actually just had an email tonight about how the grant money will be distributed. So we're just working on that. I still hope to implement that project late this summer and into the fall and have those installed for later in the year.
Thank you. And if I may, a subsequent and through you, Madam Mayor.
Mhm.
The two locations are the municipal building and the SCRC. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
Thank you. Are you moving the report?
Yes, I will.
Thank you. Seconder? Councillor Kiesebrink? And Councillor okay, hands down. Ms. Frey, will you call the question, please?
Open for voting, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. And that
Voting
is
is closed.
unanimously. Thank you. We'll move on to 10.2.3, the Major Street Reconstruction Contract Award. Councillor McDougall, you pulled the report.
Yes, yes, I did, Madam Mayor. Thank you very much. And a question through to Kevin Arsenal, if I could, please, Madam Mayor.
Yes, please go ahead.
Mr. Arsenal, I see that we have a lot of bidders on this project. Is that perhaps due to an early release of this?
Through the mayor to the councillor, I believe so. The market was quite competitive when we put this out, and I do think it was because we were probably one of the first municipalities with some major construction out for bid.
And so further through, Madam Mayor, does that mean we would probably see a savings on this contract over late release?
Through the mayor to the councillor, it would strictly be a guesstimation, but yeah, I do believe that is the case.
Through you, Madam Mayor, very good. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you. Are you moving the report, Councillor McDougall?
I certainly will. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. And Councillor Watton, I believe, is going to second that. Is that correct? Councillor Watton?
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Kevin Arsenal, thank you very, very much for getting these tenders out. I know that's a bone of contention with me. We approved the capital budget, and I want to get those tenders out and get the work started and get some good pricing. So I very much appreciate, council, I'm sure, very much appreciates you getting those tenders out and getting the awards to us tonight. So did we call a question on that one, Ms. Fry?
Not yet, Madam Mayor.
Okay, I'm doing it now, please.
Open for voting, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
Voting is closed, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, and that's carried unanimously. Thank you. We'll move on now to 10.2.4, the Surface Treatment and Slurry Seal Contract Award. Councillor Kiesebrink, you pulled this.
Yes, Madam Mayor, would you like me to move it?
Yes, please. And you have a question?
Did you want a seconder?
Yeah, I do. I don't see anybody's hands yet. Councillor Watton, please go ahead, Councillor Kiesebrink.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Arsenault, for your report. I was just curious, double surface treatments, they tend to be a more cost-effective alternative to like a hot mix asphalt. I'm just wondering, can you advise what kind of work was done on Cartwright West Quarter Line? In our capital budget from 2019, it just reads hard surface treatment, but I'm just curious if it was a similar treatment to what's being purported here.
Kevin?
Through the mayor to Councillor Kiesebrink, yes. Cartwright West Quarter Line is the same treatment. It does get referred to as quite a few different things, but surface treatment is double high flow in our context of what we do for surface treatment. So yeah, it is the same type of treatment.
So further through you, Madam Mayor, are our decisions related to the type of treatment we do dictated by budget or by type of traffic or both? Could you perhaps speak to that?
Kevin?
Absolutely. Through the mayor to the councillor, there's a couple of factors that are taken into place. But some main considerations that were actually discussed in the hard surfacing report is the roadside environment. And when we say roadside environment, we're actually speaking about essentially population density. So if you have a lot of houses like in town or a waterfront dense area, we're going to go with the asphalt. It handles the slow turning movements, that kind of thing, better than the surface treatment would. There are a few other considerations, but really it comes down to that roadside environment as the driving decision factor on it.
So I noticed that Dufferin Construction in particular, they have 7 asphalt batch plants, and they make really good quality controlled asphalt mix to meet specifications. So it was the type of treatment that they're providing, is it based on what we've put out the bid for, or is there a combination of recommendations from them, or how would that work?
Through the mayor to the councillor, it's based on what we scope in the tender itself. So this particular one, we have a section of Coryell that will be asphalt that's more so in town as opposed to the piece that's going to the north out of town, which will be a double high float surface treatment. And then McLaughlin Road is actually split into 2 treatment types as well. So 7A to Suggett will be asphalt, whereas everything to the south of that will be the surface treatment. We don't leave it up to the contractor to leave us options. It's not a proposal in that sense. We do scope that out just because we are aware of the cost differences between the 2 treatment types, and no, we could not afford to pave the whole entire road surface.
Excellent. So their decision making, so it's not just one treatment for the entire road. There's actually that much detail going into each project, such that some parts of the road would get one type of treatment over another. That's good, very reassuring that much work has gone into all of this. And Dufferin Construction certainly is a solid paving contractor. So thank you for your recommendation, and certainly would support that.
You're welcome.
That's all, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Watton, did you have a question, or is your hand up from seconding it?
Sorry, from seconding it.
Okay, I don't see any further questions. So Ms. Fry, can you call the question, please?
Open for voting, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
Voting is closed, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, and that's carried unanimously. And we will now move on to 10.2.5, financial disclosure requirement. And Councillor Kiesebrink, you've pulled it. Do you make the motion?
Yes, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Ross. You have a question, Councillor Kiesebrink?
Yes, thank you. Director Barta, would you say that most municipalities have a modified accrual accounting approach?
Director Barta?
Through the mayor, yes, it's a modified approach, and it does take into consideration many of the accruals that would normally be done. It does not, however, take into consideration depreciation or post-employment benefits. Those are done when the financial statements are prepared at the end of the year in order to go along with the PSAB requirements. That's the public sector accounting standard requirements.
So further, are you suggesting in your report that we go to strictly an accrual style of accounting, or are you just more fulfilling the requirements that Ontario municipalities must fulfill with the reporting process?
I'm actually not recommending any changes to the current practices. We are just, the report advises council of the fact that we do not budget for depreciation or post-employment, although the financial statements, when they are prepared, will reflect these two items and treat capital somewhat different than the way it was presented in the original budget documents.
So each department is already paying for their own post-employment benefits annually, and that's already covered in their budgets?
Yes, with post-employment benefits, what we have as a municipality allowed for is the option for employees to retire early, starting at approximately age 55, I believe, and to receive health and dental benefits until the age of 65, should they qualify. Because this creates a liability for the future, we have to make sure that that liability is recognized on the financial statements. We do not necessarily fund that liability 100%. What we are doing, and most municipalities do, is we kind of pay as we go, so that if somebody retires and is collecting those benefits, we expense it as part of the current operating budget. We would not necessarily ever really have the full liability reflected from one year to the next.
Thank you very much. That's all, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. That is moved and seconded. I don't have any other further questions. So Ms. Frey, could you call the vote, please?
Open for voting, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. And that is carried unanimously. Thank you very much. And now we move to what we've all been waiting for, 10.2.6, the final operating budget. And Councillor Kiesebrink, you have pulled this. We need to, you need to make the motion, or? Yes, make the motion, seconded, please. Councillor Watton. Question, Councillor Kiesebrink.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was just curious, before, I believe it was Councillor Ross had asked about conferences and possibly Councillor Guido, given the fact that it was likely that we wouldn't be going to conference. I know that that was one of the questions that was posed at the budget open house as well. And I notice now, as the budgets come back, that it appears the conference amounts have been deducted. Is that a correct understanding, or are they still in there?
Director Barta?
As far as I know, we have not changed anything. There was no specific direction from council to make any changes, so everything is intact as it was originally presented.
And Councillor Kiesebrink, I know that AMO has, they're having a virtual conference. You know, there hasn't been any decision that nobody is going to any conferences this year. But there are conferences and they're virtual. They're probably a little bit less expensive. But anyway, just to that. And I see that our CAO, Mr. Nix, has got his hand up. Mr. CAO?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to confirm that we did not make any changes related to the either the expenses that are one-time or revenues that we will not be collecting in a COVID environment. So we have budgeted as a normal year in order that we can provide the services to our residents once we get out of this COVID environment.
Further through you, Madam Mayor, last year when we did go, or not last year, the year before, when we went to AMO, we were able as a council to do some delegations because there were members present from the provincial government that we could advocate with. Do you know if AMO is going to be setting up delegations with ministers this year through the virtual conferencing?
Mr. CAO, can you answer that?
I believe they will. They did last year, and it's been a time-honored I don't know tradition at AMO where politicians have access to ministers. So I have no doubt that they would continue that even in a virtual format.
And Councillor Kiesebrink, I have asked staff if they felt that there's a need to make a delegation, and if that is the case, I would be willing to do that on behalf of council.
Yeah, that was a very impactful experience, and I think it was very helpful to have that face-to-face for the issues that we dealt with at that time, those 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Further, if I could, Madam Mayor, in summary, it looks like we're spending about 52,000 on software. Is there, and maybe this isn't a question that can be answered at the moment. I know that I forwarded something to our CAO, Mr. Nix, that I saw that was done by another community in Western Canada, where they had some software that was sort of consolidated and had all these support elements. They had basically created an app. I'm just wondering, could we, as a part of our work, review the softwares that we're using? Like, we've got so many different ones, to see if there's any way to consolidate and use, have something with more functionality and possibly less cost.
Well, I could ask our CAO to answer, but maybe Adam Debicki would. I'll leave it up to you, Mr. CAO.
If you don't mind, I'll take the first shot at it. It is something we would love to look at. However, we do not have a mature infrastructure at this point that can handle all of the requirements for that type of software. We have a number of individual pieces that we would love to get together and consolidate, because the information flow makes it easier. It makes it less apt for error. But we do need to invest more in terms of our infrastructure and processes to have that go forward. And in terms of costing less, I don't believe that we would see a reduction. I believe that as we move forward, we'll see a continuing increase in infrastructure or in technology costs. What it'll do is allow us to have the information to make better informed decisions and hopefully see benefits that way, as well as provide better service to our taxpayers in terms of interface and ability to communicate.
Mr. CAO, when you say infrastructure, do you mean like computers that we need, the better computers in order to utilize better software? Is that what you mean by infrastructure?
Not so much the individual computers. It's more the back end. It's our servers that we use.
Okay.
If we go to online, how we manage that. There's either you invest in the hard servers in the background, or you invest in going online with a lot more ongoing annual costs. So there's all kinds of variations, but it does need more money, for lack of a better word, either way.
So further, if I could, through you, Madam Mayor, what is the 6,000 for the GIS annual license from the region for ESRI?
Perhaps Adam could answer that, please.
Adam?
Hey, absolutely, through you, Madam Mayor. So the $6,000 for GIS is, the short answer is the region has an enterprise license agreement with ESRI, and so they get absolutely amazing pricing on their licenses. And we are just able to tap in and buy our licenses through the region. So that $6,000 is actually about half of what we would pay if we tried to get licenses on our own.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And if I could, Madam Mayor, a further question: where are the outdoor ping pong tables going, and what grant did we receive that the amount stated in the budget is our portion?
Who can answer that? Director Barta?
Councillor Coleman, probably. Or, I mean, Director Coleman, please.
Director Coleman, then, could you answer
Yes,
that?
I can. The grant, this is terrible. I can't remember the name of the insurance company offhand. They had we received $5,000 from them towards the project, and I would really like to state their name for the public record, but so that's the grant that we received. It was through an insurance company.
Perhaps for the sake of the minutes, Director Coleman, and it would be great to have that in the minutes. So you could just provide that
yes,
afterwards.
It's Cowan.
It's Cowan. There we go.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Whoever prompted that.
And sorry,
which LB it is.
Thank you.
And where are those going? Sorry, Director Coleman.
They will be near Bird's Eye Pool because we will keep the equipment at the pool house there.
Oh, fabulous. Okay, thank you very much. That's all my questions.
That's great. Thank you. Are there any other questions from council? Director Barta, is there anything that you would like to say to wrap up?
I would like to thank Terry Barton for putting the budget together. And I apologize that I'm not able to answer all of the individual small detailed questions because I wasn't part of the actual budget preparation, but I think it is a very good budget and I'm quite happy to follow up with the implementation with council's approval.
Thank you very much, Director Barta. I can't understand why you haven't gotten all the details. You've been with us a week. So thank you very much. And I don't see any other hands. So I just wanted to just make a couple of comments here. This has been a long process. And I want to thank all staff for scrutinizing all avenues for cost savings and efficiencies. Special nod to Manager Terry Barton and to our new Director, Laura Barta. To all staff for reviewing all past budgets and actuals for each department for the 2021 budget that meets the needs for services to our constituents. Thank you to the public for participating in the virtual open house and the online opportunities to make comments and ask questions on the draft budget. It was a valued input in the development of the final draft. And finally, a thank you to Council for your diligence in carefully reviewing, asking questions in an effort to come up with the right balance of needs and services and the reality of affordability for our constituents. There's a lot of confusion with percentages bandied around from the township, the region, and education, all of which make up the final tax levy. The bottom line I believe that people are interested in is how this will affect your own residential tax bill. On the average home in Scugog, assessed at approximately $437,400. That's not the selling price, that's the assessed price. The percentage increase on the tax bill is 1.5% for assets and services in Scugog. Add in education in the region for a final total increase on your tax bill of 2.58%. With that, I will ask that Ms. Frey, you call the vote.
The vote is open, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. And that is carried unanimously. Thank you, everyone. And now we'll move to 10.3, correspondence. There is no correspondence. 10.4 was under the consent agenda. 11 and 12, 13, 14, 15, I'm asking for a confirming bylaw. Motion, please. Councillor Kiesebrink, Councillor McDougall, and questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Ms. Frey.
Open for voting, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. While we're waiting for the vote, Director Coleman has indicated that the grant came from hometown grant from Cowan. And the confirming bylaw is approved unanimously. Motion to adjourn. Oh, Councillor Kiesebrink and Councillor Guido, you weren't first off the mark tonight, Councillor Guido. And questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor, this meeting is adjourned. Call the vote, please.
Open for voting, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
Just waiting for Councillor Ross.
In favor, thank you.
And that's carried unanimously. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, staff. Great reports. We've accomplished a lot tonight. Very much appreciated. And we're actually finished before 9:30. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Good night, everyone.